Hello, and welcome to another episode of Conscious Business Connections, brought to you by the New York City chapter of Conscious Capitalism. My name is Joe Laranjeiro, and I'm joined today by Nasya Kamrat, co-founder and CEO of Faculty. Nasya, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Good. So to get us started, Nasya, please tell us a little bit about Faculty, what the business is, and how you came about to creating it.
Sounds good. Yeah. So Faculty is we call ourselves a spatial storytelling agency, but we really create sort of bespoke experiences that are really sort of merge technology and story and strategy to create experiences. We've founded the company in 2012. And a lot of what our model is also, we're small by design. So we bring in sort of experts from different disciplines to sort of co-create together based on the sort of task at hand. So we've been doing it for a while. And really, it's like, really believe that like stories can change the world. And that's sort of what the basis of the company is.
How did you come to be inspired by stories and storytelling? What was a little bit of your origin story with creating the business?
Origin stories are really funny because they're never linear. They're never like, this is my origin story. There's always like twists and turns and sort of surprises. And so I think you have to kind of have a lot of like sort of curiosity and sort of elasticity along the way. And I think that's very definitive like of my journey. But I grew up in upstate New York. My parents were like really big hippies from like 60s hippies. I actually was born on a commune. We moved very early when I was very young. But one of my earliest memories was actually going to the health food co-op with my mom. And I would sit down and she'd be like helping, customers, and she'd be ringing them up and I'd be like drawing or whatever I was doing. But I kind of had this like, it still was like kind of amazing notion in me that like this idea of people kind of working together and cooperatively working together towards like a common vision was like the only way to do business. And so very early on, and my parents sort of had to instill this throughout, was that's how people work, that's how people live, that's what makes people do incredible things in the world. So like fast forward 20 years, I finished school and I moved to New York City, and I wanted to do theater actually. So I was a director and a playwright. And so I was a sort of starving artist for a couple of years, realized I needed health insurance. So I started working in advertising, as one does. And I ended up at this big sort of global ad agency, and it was amazing. Like having these incredible mentors who were like wholly focused on like my career trajectory, or that's what it felt like to me at least. And like I never kind of fit in like a singular box. Like I was like kind of creative and I was kind of strategic and I was kind of business oriented and producing oriented. And so like pretty soon I just started like making up titles of like what I wanted to be doing. And they would be like, sure, that sounds good. So every like review year, they'd be like, oh yeah, go do this thing that doesn't actually exist in like our HR handbook. So that was incredible. But I started to realize and I was there for quite a while, and I started to realize, I'd be sitting in these like big meetings with like all these like really brilliant men and women. Well, actually like mostly white men, but that's another story for another time. And it was so much about like billing the right amount of hours and, putting together these creative briefs, which were like based off of like personas instead of actual people, and all these things that kind of just like made me feel like slightly icky at the end of the day. And so I left that company, started like freelancing around, worked at a couple of shops, both on the agency and on the brand side. And I realized that wherever I went, it was sort of the same story where like there was like little transparency, everything was like super siloed, sexism and ageism and like racism and like all the isms were like rampant everywhere I went. And I kind of just like, you know what, maybe I could do something different. And I met my business partner, and he's kind of amazing because I'm like kind of like come up with like big crazy ideas, and then he like makes them reality, which is kind of a nice partnership to have. And we only knew each other for about like a month or two maybe before we started Faculty, which is kind of bananas, but amazing. And we sort of had this shared vision that there could be this ecosystem we bring together like super smart, super strategic, creative people from different disciplines together to like solve a problem for our clients. Um, and we can do it with like diversity in mind and like community in mind. And so we started the company, and it was going, really well. But like all startups, we started like needing to make actual money because we had like employees and that we needed to pay. And so we started just like doing work as opposed to doing what we were sort of passionate about, I think. And um, we were sort of going on the way. And then like back in 2017, I got pregnant. It was like a huge pivotal moment for me. Got pregnant a little bit later in life. And I had a really complicated pregnancy. And so I was in the hospital for like my entire third trimester, basically. I was like trying to run a business out of like a hospital bed, which is like super not fun in so many ways. And a lot of my clients and colleagues didn't even know I was pregnant. I didn't tell anyone. So like there'd be like alarms going off, and I'd be like, oh yeah, the sounds of Brooklyn. So, whatever, it's not a big deal. And so, but I realized at that moment that all the things that I sort of held true, the things like the transparency and the authenticity and all the things that we told our clients to do, like I was no longer living. And I was like, oh crap, like we need to change this. This isn't working anymore. And so we like kind of rebranded and refocused and reshifted and really decided that like we have to like live what we believe as opposed to like just being this sort of scrappy startup that was just trying to make do. And so that's sort of how we kind of became who we are today. So it wasn't like we went into the company saying, oh yeah, we're like super mission driven. And then like we lost our way, and then like we came back and we're like, all right, crap, this is what we wanted to do in the beginning. And so, and since then it's been pretty amazing. The minute we kind of made that mind shift, we've actually been able to really like change the trajectory of the company and have like really incredible clarity on like who we are and what we want to be doing.
Yeah, it's you need to constantly reflect on the values, right? And always make sure that you're keeping them in mind, even as the business goes off in all sorts of tangents and angles. And you fight the latest fire, right? That you have to fight, and sometimes values can be put aside. But it sounds like you guys have really made an effort, a conscious effort, to make sure that doesn't happen. I want to get the values in a minute too, because I want to hear about some more. You mentioned transparency, right, and a few others, but the storytelling aspect of what drives you and what drives faculty. Why is that such an important inspiration for you, and why do you think we need that kind of in our society and in our world to really progress?
Yeah. Well, I mean, stories have been around for like thousands upon thousands of years, right? It was like it's the earliest form of communication. It's the earliest form of understanding. It's brought people together, and sort of always sort of been the thing that helped people make sense of the world around them. And I really believe that like to truly know someone and understand their perspective, you have to understand their story. And you end up finding things that end up connecting us as opposed to sort of like being something that separates us. And I think it's sort of this like common thing that brings people together. And like now, like more than ever in like this current world that we're in, we need that power of like listening and hearing and sharing more than we've ever had before. Like it was a really interesting sort of story in terms of like from a career perspective. We have this hospitality client, and we're tasked to do this like series of like stage shows, sort of destination specific stage shows, sort of like if a TED Talk and a Broadway show and a documentary film had like a little media baby, shows like that. So our first series was in Alaska, and we did this one. One of the shows was about Alaskan natives, and we're like, okay, we're gonna do this. Like, let's really do this. Let's tell like the real story about what this is. And we had this incredible client who was like, do your thing, and like trusted us completely to sort of tell this like kind of amazing story. And it became the story of this like a sort of unknown story of this like really intense cultural genocide. And which is not something that you would think would happen on a vacation, but we did it in a way where it was sort of heartfelt and educational and inspirational. And so happened to be one of the shows, and afterwards, this couple came up to us. This older couple came up to us, and the husband had like tears in his eyes, and he was like, did you guys do that? And I'm like, yeah, we work with our partner, brand, and we work these out. And he was like, I never knew that this story existed, and it has completely changed my perspective of United States history. It changed my perspective of this place that I'm about to go to, about his country. And he's like, I never will sort of see people the same way again. And it was like that moment I was like, oh my God, we're actually doing like cool stuff that matters. And it was sort of like this like affirmation for us that you could tell challenging stories or difficult stories or stories that are often not heard in ways that people can really hear them and listen to them and accept them, even if it's not part of their own journey or their own opinion or their own perspective. And you can actually make, maybe not, massive difference, but you can make sort of incremental differences in people's lives and perspectives and make them just like understand other humans better. And that I think is sort of essential to the work that we do. And sort of essential also to like, if you're thinking about what as humans we need to do next in this world, like right now, it feels sort of like imperative that we are able to share and hear and listen in different ways.
Yeah, it's you were talking about empathy, broadening perspectives, the humanization of someone else's experience and point of view, all things that are in short supply right now. So I think the need is definitely there for sure. Switching gears a bit, I wanted to come back to values, and I want to do that now. You talk about transparency and some of the other, I guess, the values that you felt were missing early on in your career. You've been determined to make sure that you incorporate them now that you have the ability to in your own business. I'm sure another one for you is around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And just to get your perspective on why do you think businesses and industries in general have fallen short in creating DE&I cultures and workforces?
Yeah, I think businesses fall short because it's super hard, right? It's really hard to really commit to doing and owning this as something that, as an organization that you're committed to. And like that being said, like I think one of the things that I've seen, and I see a lot right now, is that organizations are often very reactionary, right, to what's happening in the world. So particularly when it comes to like diversity. And so, something happens and they have to like go and fix the problem. And I think, that's where some of the challenges come in, because like they'll start hiring, they'll hire diversity leaders. They say they can't find the right talent, which has sort of come up in the last few days, especially, which has been kind of crazy. But I think the reality for me is that like you can't expect change if you're being reaction. It has to actually be embedded. You can't just like say, oh, hashtag X is sort of causing me to do this thing. And it can't start at the hiring process. It has to be a commitment and decision in the company, like from the top down. Every single person has to have that as part of their ethos. And you, I think, as an organization, have to like truly believe that bringing diverse voices is good for business and not just good for optics. And if you can like own that and really truly believe that, I think the challenge of actually bringing in diverse talent is not alleviated, because it's still challenging. And like, I'm the first to admit that like we're trying and we're doing as much as we can, and we want to do better. And I think as you sort of are always sort of evolving and learning, that. But I think you make that sort of like shift where it's like, no, this is like, I actually believe this is like the right thing to do, because it's going to like help my business and help my bottom line and help all in P&L, all the things that like make business work. And I actually believe that like if you have diverse thinking and diverse stories and diverse voices, you're going to actually do just that. You're going to actually change the trajectory of business to the better. So
yeah, it's a mindset shift, an acknowledgement of good business practices, not just for humanity, but also bottom line. But if there was one like tactical thing, like this step or this specific strategy, that's an action that a business can take to improve either, whether it be the inclusivity, diversity, either one, what do you think?
You know, I think it has to be a sort of constant process. So I think you have to make a decision that you want to be more diverse and inclusive. And I think you have to constantly be actively building that community and that network. So it's not like I have this role to fill, I'm going to go hire a diverse talent, which 100%, but it has to be like every day, go on LinkedIn and find people who are not like you, who are have different opinions and different voices from different places, and start building a community, so that when you do have an opening, when you do have to hire talent, you have this like beautiful community that you can just be like, oh, I know this amazing person, and then also ask for help. Like, we all know a ton of amazing people, and amazing people know other amazing people. So say, hey, like, I'm in this thing. Like, how do I build my community? How do I build my network so it feels a little bit more sort of authentic and diverse? And like, you also, as like a leader in a business, you have to make it essential to every single person in your organization and on your team. So like, if everyone is building community together, right, and everyone's building their own communities, and they all have this like really incredible network to pull from, the trajectory to actually kind of like start gaining the right type of diverse talent becomes like a little bit less of a hill to climb in a lot of ways. So, I think that I'm a big believer in community and having incredible people around you. And so if you sort of live that as your sort of ethos and your vision every day, then ideally, when it comes to like actually diversify, like creating diversity and inclusion, like it's a little bit of an easier lift than I think some organizations are currently having.
That's great advice. Yeah, the whole recruitment process is one that really needs to be upended. Job descriptions, how we source talent, right? We always go back to the same pools with the same descriptive words, the same job tasks and functions that sometimes don't speak to a diverse set of candidates.
Yeah, and you can't expect, you hire, like, everyone's like hiring like diversity and inclusion leaders, right? And you can't expect one person to change the organization, right? Like, if you're saying, oh no, I'm going to hire this person, they're going to fix everything. Like, you're going to fail, and you're going to fail miserably, and it's going to be really challenging. So I think it has to sort of change structurally. It has to sort of come from a place of like empathy and understanding and passion and vision, and it has to be embedded in the culture of the company. And then, this is all, and hopefully that will actually make something change in this world, which I think is right now.
You have to hire that individual and give that individual real power and real access and ability. Sometimes it can become a token person. No, see, we hired someone to handle this. We're okay. Don't come looking over here. What else you want me to do? And that becomes a mindset a lot. But also, you talked about a little bit about the employees and the community, and the storytelling is a big part of that. We tell our stories, and we empathetically listen to the stories that every one another has. It's that frame of reference of different paths, different perspectives, different walks of life, which even if people are the same gender and ethnic background, at least it starts to build a bit about just different experiences and makes you more open to that, which, as you rightly say, is a process, and over time that expands more and more. Cool. So you're living in Portland now, right? And we'll stay away from what's been happening out on the West Coast and in your city, but just kind of curious to get your thoughts on Brooklyn versus Portland. So Brooklyn, where you've started your business, now you're moved out West, and just anything in terms of similarities, differences that you've noticed.
Yeah.
Again, recent stuff aside.
Putting that stuff aside, which is its own entirely different conversation. So, my whole family was like born in Brooklyn. So like, my parents were born in Brooklyn, they met in Brooklyn, and my grandparents lived there. So like, my childhood and was very much about New York City and Brooklyn. So when I moved there when I was graduating university, it was sort of just coming home in a lot of ways. And so I am 100% a New Yorker. Without a doubt, I will always be a New Yorker, no matter how long I live on the West Coast. New York is sort of essential to sort of like who I am, which is amazing, but also like in Portland, it is a little bit different, I hear. I think New Yorkers, we have very strong opinions about things. We're pretty vocal
No,
sometimes.
not true.
We have right. We're sort of like we walk in. There's like a force, and in the West Coast, it's just like a little bit chiller. Like people are like way more laid back than they are on the East Coast. So it's been a little bit of an adjustment to like find ways to connect to people. It's been a little bit of a challenge. Although, and of course now with COVID,
Mm.
you know, there's that. But you know, Portland is amazing. I mean, besides the like beauty and the nature and the incredible food, there's this like sort of like undercurrent of creativity here, right? There's just people who just want to do good work. They're very mission driven. They care a lot about the things that they care about. And I think that is incredibly inspiring. And I think that is similar to how people are in New York, you know, like people in Brooklyn, you know, like they care and they take action and they make things happen. And it's based on sort of shared vision and ethos and understanding. And I think that Portland kind of has that similarity, even if like the way people get to from point A to point B is a little bit different. I think that sort of like value system and sort of passion to do good, interesting work that makes the world a better place. I think there's both cities sort of have that element to them pretty strongly.
Well, your business was founded in Brooklyn. It's still rooted there. So I know you still have strong ties to the area.
Yeah.
But yeah, it sounds like similarities are just close enough where you can bridge the two.
Yeah. But now I have a house instead of like a condo, which is
Yeah.
and like with my 3-year-old child, it's like awesome to do. So that's been helpful.
Yeah, especially, and you moved out there before COVID, right? Or
I did. So I've been here about a year and a half. We moved here in twofold. Like one, we've been talking about opening up a West Coast office for a while, just because we have a lot of partners and clients out on the West Coast, and it's not always so much fun to travel when you have an infant at home. So I was like, oh, let's just like actually make the move now. And we also, you know, having a toddler in my Brooklyn condo,
yeah.
I was like, yeah, this is entirely the right time to go and open up a second office in Portland. But up until COVID, you know, I was going back to New York, you know, regularly, and you know, most of my team is still New York based. We also have a small office in Boston as well.
Well, Nasya, thank you so much for joining us today, and for being such a great inspiration of conscious business principles and actions. We really appreciate it. Before we let you go, can you let us know where we can learn more about faculty?
Yeah, you could check us out online. We have a website, www.wearefaculty.com. Also check us out on Medium, or you know, find me on LinkedIn. I'm always open to chatting with people and talking about weird things and coming up with weird solutions to like big problems. So I'm always happy to connect to anyone.
Well, it's weird times, so weird solutions are what we need.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, Nasya, for joining us. Also wanted to thank our Conscious Capitalism New York City chapter sponsors, the Core Club, as well as the Tell Me Up Foundation, who support makes programs like this possible. And so thank you everyone for joining. We hope to see you again on another episode of Conscious Business Connections.
Thank you.